Here at the Düsseldorf Boat Show, Nordkapp has introduced what is essentially a smaller and more affordable version of its rather lovely Coupe 905. And it's this, the Nordkapp Coupe 830. Now, first things first, this really is, just like its big sister, a very attractive boat. These dynamic hull window shapes, quite aggressive mouldings there on the whole sides. We've got cutaways in the bulwarks there, and we've got a nice inverted screen. It's quite a potent and aggressive looking thing. And as you move to the back end, that's entirely borne out by the engine options. Now, what we have here is a single 300. You can go down to a single 250. Which will give you performance, I think, just shy of 40 knots. But you can also rig this with everything right up to twin 200s for a top end in excess of 50 knots, in excess of 51 knots, in fact, according to the guys here. So that makes this quite a serious performance boat. Stepping on board at the aft end, you'll see that we've got really quite generous swim platforms on both sides, plus an easy partition to walk through to the other side. That obviously lifts up so that you can trim the engine right out. At the back end, we've got a central bench, relatively symmetrical aft end, and in tandem with the 905, actually this is a module, so you can remove that, leave that on the pontoon side, open up this cockpit. So it's quite versatile in that regard, and it's good to see the fenders stowed away very nicely there. There's also an aft-facing bench built into the back end of that pilot house. It's a very comfy sort of spot. You seat 3 people there, no problem, perhaps even 4. Fit the table into this little receptacle in the deck. It's a very handy aft lounging and dining space. What I really like though is the fact that you can drop this seat down, fold it flush against the aft end of that pilot house, against that bulkhead, and then if you drop down these cushions, just unclip them there. There's an integrated cover, so when you come alongside you can wrap up your furniture nice and fast. Just about making boating that bit easier. And of course the fact you can fold it flush against the pilot house means you can increase that deck space again. It really is very versatile in that regard. And actually what I also like is the fact that at the aft end of the pilot house we've got little extended panels, little wings. So when you sit here, if I put myself down in this space, you'll see that you're nicely sheltered, quite cocooned. They tell me that underway at 40 knots it actually feels very refined, not just sheltered but also relatively quiet, so that's a very neat touch. I like the fact that we got dedicated storage for your fenders, 3 on each side, but on the face of it storage doesn't seem particularly good, because under this port hatch where we've got the pipework for the black water tank, under the central section here we've got the fuel tank, and in any case to get under there you need to remove this modular aft bench, so you can lift that hatch. And on the starboard side where we've got batteries and hydraulics. So storage is taken care of beneath this aft bench. This module is essentially a hollow unit, which means, if I just undo these clips and open this up, you've got good capacity in there for fenders, for lines, for canvases, for cushions, whatever you need. Let's close that back up and head along the starboard side deck, I think, up towards the bow. Now this is symmetrical, equal width of side decks on both sides, good guardrails all the way along, good grab rails on the rooftop too. A couple of steps up to the bow space. And up here, well, this broadly mirrors the foredeck of the 905 Coupe as well, and that's a very good thing. So we have a really neatly contained lounger with nicely contoured backrests there. Seat 2 people in there facing forward, and the fact that you've got these nice rigid mouldings on either side with cup holders built in gives you a really good, profound sense of security. It's the kind of foredeck you'd happily be on even in a slightly lumpy sea or at pace. And this is quite a nice touch too. We see this on the Coupe 905 as well. If you just take these cushions, fold them right back, well, immediately that gives you access to a hatch to get light, fresh air and baggage if necessary down to the cabin. And also, it means that the cushions and nicely contained between these mouldings. You see we've got poppers here, so you can stretch a canvas over the top there and keep them safe and dry when you get out onto the water and underway. You'll see also that we have the sunshade rigged there. Now obviously it's not lofty enough for you to stand up under there. It's probably only 2 or 3 feet, but it's perfectly adequate for this. And at the front end, we have a step-through bow of sorts, lots of space for your anchor chain because it's a relatively deep-set bow that. And over here on the starboard side, we've got a gas locker. Now that confused me a little bit because I can't see anything that would route to. I don't see any gas cooker further aft. But on closer inspection, it turns out there is one, and we'll find that in a second. It's quite impressive. But let's head back down the port side. You'll see that these twin sunroofs, that comes as standard. But if I look over to the 905, which handily enough is right next door, they've got a canvas sunroof, a slide-back sunroof, and you can opt for that instead of these if necessary, just for a bit of extra light and ventilation inside. And rather than going all the way to the aft cockpit, which is currently very busy, we'll step into the pilot house itself, and this differs markedly from the 905 because you don't have one skipper's side door, we've got 2 side doors. We don't have the aft door, but the way they've arranged the furniture really takes excellent advantage of that. Now you step down inside, quite deep, down into that central section, so you'll see that even on this smaller model, headroom is really very good indeed. And as you'll see, if I look aft, that enormous one-piece window gives you fantastic views of all the punters doing their thing. Now what we have here is a full beam aft bench with a table that you can open up with a couple of leaves. We'll just get the marketing materials off that, open out with a couple of leaves and swing around and orchestrate as you see fit. What's also quite clever back here, of course, is the fact that these helm seats can both rotate to face aft. So this is a proper dining station, I'd say for 5 people, no problem at all. And what I also like is the fact that you'll see on either side we've got little cutouts in those bulkheads, and that is because you can turn this section into a transverse double bed, and with these 2 cutouts, one on either side, it gives you decent length, up to about 1.8 metres. I think that's about 5'11". So it's a very, well, it's not particularly large, but it's a very feasible second double berth, which is quite impressive on a boat of this scale. Well, that's not all. If I look down at this slightly elevated section of deck aft, we've got a handle in the middle. If I lift that and push it with my foot, really, in all honesty, it's a 2-handed job. But once you move it back there, kind of concertinas upwards, there's a really big cavernous space, really well shaped too, nicely lined. Get all sorts in there. Let's close that back up because there's a really pleasant surprise further forward. Under the helm seat, we've got a nice big fridge. Under the co-pilot seat, we've got a bit of extra storage in there. And if we take away this cushion from the co-pilot seat, again, it's probably a 2-handed job, but I have a go. Open this up and it rests on that bracket. Open up this lid and rest it on that little plinth that we've just made, and there we have a really quite generous size of sink and a single gas burner, and that's what the gas locker forward, of course, connects to. I mean, it's not a station for haute cuisine or 3-course meals, but it's a brilliant little camping solution with limited space. I like that a lot. Let's fold that all away and take a little look forward, because to port of the helm station, you'll see we've got an open plan access point to the forward cabin. Now this is a very sporty looking boat with quite dynamic paired back lines, particularly around that foredeck. So you don't expect much in the way of headroom, and you don't really get it, certainly forward, but the basic footprint is very good. There is just about space up here to prop yourself up a little bit on a cushion and have a read, and of course you can open this overhead hatch here for a bit of extra daylight and a bit of extra fresh air. So you could feasibly read here, but realistically, if you want to have a read in bed, you're best spinning yourself around and popping your head aft. This is what those rather lovely hull windows look like from the inside, and they're plenty big enough too as well. Good views from bed level. What we have here at this big double is a secondary mattress topper. You see that a lot from boat builders in the Nordic states, just to add an extra bit of comfort. We've also got storage space down beneath here. Now you can have this as a little fridge instead, but they've spec'd this as storage, and it's quite a good sort of space. It's slightly dark in there, so we'll go through the top just to give you a better impression, see how far back it goes. And again, it's beautifully lined. And we also, of course, have a heads compartment over on the starboard side. And this is very much a day boating machine, and the heads compartment bears that out. It's a very decent size, decent volume, nicely fitted out. Again, a decent window there, and excellent access to the electrics on the backs of the dash equipment there through these little fabric panels. But as you can see, there's no shower fitting, and if you look down at the deck, no drain holes. So this is not a wet room. This is merely a heads compartment, and in terms of its capacity to achieve what it needs to do there, it's very impressive indeed. Quite generous, in fact, for a boat of this scale. The final thing to look at is the port changing seat. Now, there's no storage underneath that, but it's a comfortable little spot. Plenty of headroom to get your clothes changed or just to relax with a book. And because we have the capacity to sleep 2 people forward and 2 people in the aft end of that pilot house, we also get a privacy curtain that helps compensate for the fact that everything is so open plan. So let's pop back up into the pilot house itself and have a look at the helm position. Though actually we'll start with the co-pilot position, because the co-pilot doesn't get an adjustable seat and there's no bolster, but you do get a reversible backrest, so you can expand that after net. Further forward we do get a little tray for your phone, and of course an integrated phone charger there, plus a USB point and a cup holder, plus a grab rail, plenty of vents to keep that screen nice and clear. And down here we've also got a little storage net for your bits and bobs, plus a really good deep storage space beneath your feet. Now let's just spin around to the starboard side and take a look at the helm station itself, because that is obviously just that bit better appointed. Again, we've got a little storage net down there. This time we get a bolster and adjustability here. The skipper's side door is a really useful feature, and the fact that we got side doors on both sides actually makes this a really simple boat to helm single-handed. We've got easy access to cleats on the gunnel tops there as well, so very simple indeed, very novice friendly. Down below here we've got a handy little foot brace, and I think there's an additional one that folds out for a more relaxed drive directly beneath you. Let's move ourselves into position at the helm itself. Now, this is my eye line, and in spite of the fact that those raised forward mouldings sort of narrow down that screen a touch, visibility is pretty good, I have to say. The wheel is adjustable, so it's easy to get comfortable in this position. We've got our throttle to starboard alongside our trim tabs. Bit of switchgear on the port side, and there's our bow thruster. Good bit of space on the main tier of the dash. I think we've got a 12-inch plotter there, but there's certainly room for a bit more. And it's relatively simplistic actually, this helm position, but it does well. It provides everything you need, and it feels quite premium as well. Little details like this just make this feel like quite a high-class boat. This then is really quite an enjoyable boat, not least because it looks superb, to my eye at least, every bit as good as the larger 905, and it also works the space so hard in a variety of sometimes surprising but always quite ingenious ways. It's a very charming boat in that regard. Now, of course, the forward headroom is restricted and there is no shower in the heads compartment, but it does so many things on a single platform of moderate proportions at a sensible price. That price goes from about €146,000 for the base model, including a 250 horsepower outboard. I suspect you'll want to spec that up significantly, because performance is part of what makes these boats so enjoyable. But basically what we have here is a single platform that operates as a weekender, a commuter and a performance boat all in one. And honestly, what's not to like about that?